Katie and John and all, I think maybe we'll get started. My name is Ed Lebo. I'm the director of the Public Art Program with the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. And I just want to thank you for taking time this morning to join us on this important new project. This is a sort of pre-submittal workshop to provide an overview on the North 32nd Street Improvement Public Art Project. And before I get too far along here, I just wanted to introduce a number of others that are on our team here. Katie, why don't you say hello?
Hi, good morning. I am Katie Byaris. I am the project manager on this project for the public art portion, and I'll be running through our presentation today.
Thanks, Katie. Barry, want to tell us about your role here today?
Sure. I'm Barry Sparkman. I'm also a public art project manager in the office, and I'll be tracking your questions in chat, and we'll read those back at the end.
And then John Dixon, we've been joined by John who's the project manager with the Street Transportation Department. Welcome, John. Thanks for joining us this morning. I think you're on mute.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Dixon. I'm currently the lone engineer in this group, but I'm the project manager for the 32nd Street Improvement Project that this artwork is going to be part of. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, John. And John has been providing us with a sort of a flow of information about the direction of this project. So if there are any questions related to the street geometries and portion as we know them at the moment, feel free to put those questions into the chat box. As I mentioned, this is the workshop pre-submittal intro to the North 32nd Street Improvement Project. If you have questions, please type them into the chat as we go along, and when we're done with the presentation, we'll read them off and see if we can get you the answers you need. And that said, the bathrooms are down the hall on the left, so feel free to make use of those if you like. And if everybody could put their settings to mute, that would be helpful, I think, for all. And with that, I'll turn it over to Katie to run through the overview of the project.
Yeah, and just so you know, everybody, we are recording this meeting, so you will be able to revisit it on our YouTube page. I'll get it posted later on today, possibly tomorrow, depending on how quickly my computer is running. All right, so thanks for joining us. This informational meeting is going over our newest public art opportunity, which is the North 32nd Street Improvements Public Art Project. For this project, we're looking for an artist or a team of artists who will be working closely with a project team consisting of engineers like John, city staff, and other professionals to design an integrated public art streetscape concept along the North 32nd Street corridor in Phoenix. The selected artist will be expected to work with the community and city to create streetscape enhancements that bolster the visual identity of the area and improve shade and pedestrian experience. This is an opportunity for artists who want to specialize or do specialize in three-dimensional design and collaborative design. So it's really specific to that kind of public art. And I'll go into a little bit more detail now. First, I want to talk about the project location. This integrated public art project is a part of a much larger series of city improvement projects that are dealing with the streetscape improvements happening along North 32nd Street, going from Sherrill Drive at the south border up to Choya Street at the north border. I believe this is the max length and it's not going to extend any farther. If you were to drive past this corridor today, you will see that work has already begun happening there. That is because there is a large water project occurring at the moment that is for future water pumping to North Phoenix. So the water department is out there working right now on the pipeline, and then our streets department is going to follow with these street improvement projects. So it's a very long-term, long-range project. that is going to provide lots of infrastructure support and development for this area. And we want the artists involved to consider all of these city goals as they are developing their design alongside their team. So I'm going to go on to the next slide and go into a little bit more detail. Currently, we have two scenarios that have been proposed by our project engineering consultant for the layout of these enhancements. Because the final scenario has not yet been fully established and determined, the artist who gets on board will be able to review these proposed layouts and will be involved in the process of developing their design with the engineers and the architects. Regardless of which scenario is selected, there are some elements that are definitely going to be included in each one. Sidewalk and pedestrian improvements along North 32nd Street is a priority here. Also landscaping, bringing in some more shade and trees, if possible, in areas. I'm only showing a small section. You can see the detail up there in the top corner, the one section that we're looking at. The selected artists obviously will have a chance to review and will be involved in the whole piece of the corridor, but this is just a good layout example. Bike lanes and bike parking is very important in this area, so that's going to be involved in these infrastructure improvements. And then adjustments to the lanes here. This image that I'm showing has one of the proposed scenarios, which has a median with trees and landscaping. This may possibly be a part of it. It may not. But definitely an adjustment of the lane widths to a more appropriate size to make this a more pedestrian-friendly corridor. So I wanted to go through each of those elements to emphasize that the selected artists and the selected artist team working within these larger project teams of engineers and designers, we're going to expect the public art components to be integrated into the concepts to complete the overall goals of the project, which is to make this a more pedestrian friendly area. Some of these potential public art opportunities could include enhancement of those sidewalks that are going in. We can talk about different types of materials of that once the artist is on board for designing, but stamping, integral color, various sort of sidewalk enhancements. There could be seating, definitely shade if possible along the corridor. Possible collaboration with any landscape architecture firms that are on board in the project to tie the entire concept together. There could be some potential locations for sculptures. I think we are trying to avoid sculptures in any median areas because of potential traffic issues. In the future, we try to avoid sculptures in medians for that reason, but there could be some locations along the side where sculpture opportunities are available. Enhanced bus shelters is a possibility. I believe there are 2 or 3 bus shelters along the corridor, and that can be a part of the conversation. And then really making this a bike-friendly community. Bike parking could be possibly impacted by public art. And then I leave etc. for open because we're bringing artists in for their creativity and their thinking outside of the box. But what we're really looking for here in the ideal artist or artist team is that we need an artist who can create a holistic environment with multiple public art enhancements and collaborating on the design concepts with fabricators, with the community, and with design teams. This is a very involved and engaged community. They care a lot about the development of this corridor. So we will have lots of opportunity for community engagement and conversations with the artist. I don't know if you guys can see that. Apologies. I don't know what that request is in that presentation, but there will be lots of opportunities to engage. Just a reminder, if you have any questions during this, please feel free to type them into the chat box. We are going to track all those questions and cover them at the end. And again, we are going to have a recording of this entire conversation available on our YouTube page.
Katie, at this point, maybe John, if you have any additional thoughts on roadway improvements that might affect this, feel free to jump in here and add to what Katie has already mentioned.
I'll give you my 2 cents here. The project limits are from Sherrill Drive, which is just north of where 32nd Street intercepts State Route 51, going north past Shea Boulevard, past Desert Cove, and terminating at Choya Street. There are 2 distinct flavors to this or areas to this project. We've got the business community, which is basically bracketed by Desert Cove and Sherrill. So that pretty much surrounds the Shea Boulevard intersection. And then there's a residential flavor to the neighborhood once you go from Desert Cove up to Choya. The other thing I wanted to throw out there was that there are 3 schools that are served by 32nd Street, and immediately to the west of the 32nd Street is Shadow Mountain High School, a middle school, and an elementary school. Many of the students are traversing 32nd Street and crossing around Desert Cove Avenue using the alley to the west of 32nd Street. So there's quite a lot of pedestrian interaction with the automobiles and buses and other such items. So it's a very highly populated pedestrian.
Great,
Thanks,
thank you,
John.
John. Appreciate that.
All right, I'm going to jump back forward. I think my next slide was on schedule. This is our estimated selection process schedule. Our goal is to get an artist under contract to begin working with this project team as soon as possible. Based on right now where our call to artist is open, you can see that is that second bullet point there is today, our informational meeting. We are leaving this application open a little bit longer than we normally do. It will be open until the end of September. The application deadline is 10:59 p.m. Arizona time or Pacific Daylight Time. The reason for that is that the application is hosted by a server in Denver, Colorado. So normally that would be, sorry, did my screen just stop sharing? Let me try to bring that right back up again.
Technology.
Technology. There we go. Is that back?
All good.
Okay, great. So our application deadline is at 10:59 p.m. So make sure you get your applications in before then when it closes. During October, there will be a selection panel held to recommend finalist artists for the projects. These finalists will then receive a comprehensive packet of information about the project and a list of interview questions. At the end of October, we will ask those finalists to rejoin our selection panel for interviews, and we'll schedule those individually. And then we have to go through an approval process that takes a couple of months to walk through all of our city council and public art and commission approvals. So we expect to be able to have a contract awarded by the end of the year this year so that the artist can begin design work with our project team the first of 2022. So that's kind of the estimated schedule that you can consider while you are applying for the project about how long it will take to go through the whole selection process. And then the majority of the work for the selected artists will happen in 2022. During that design phase in 2022, that's where we will expect the artist to work with the design team and to develop some community engagement. So won't be beginning any community engagement with an artist until they're under contract after the first of the year. As this is a highly engaged neighborhood and we want to make sure we bring that artist out to them to find out what their community needs are. Ed, anything I'm missing on pointing out in the selection schedule?
No, I think that covers it. And I can touch on some of the other things when we talk about criteria. And also I see a number of questions coming in that I think we can answer in the course of this pretty easily.
Okay, great, great. I'm going to walk through the process of how to apply and give you guys some helpful tips on this. My first tip, which I think is the most important, is to read the full RFQ before applying. I'm going to show you where to find it. You're going to go to our website, phoenix.gov/arts, find the public art opportunities page, or there will be a link later today. There will be a direct link to this call to artists on our main homepage. I'm going to make that possible today. Download the RFQ. It's a PDF document and it is comprehensive and all of the information that you need to know for application, selection criteria, things like that. Then you're actually going to apply on a website called Cafe, which is callforentry.org. You will find a link to the Cafe application on our website. If you do not have a Cafe account, you'll need to create a Cafe account. It is free for artists to create a Cafe account and to apply. And if you don't have a Cafe account and you don't want to apply for this project, I recommend creating one anyway because you can find opportunities for public art projects all over the country through Cafe. So it's a helpful resource for you, even if you decide that the North 32nd Street project isn't for you. Once you've created a Cafe account and you've uploaded some images to your portfolio, you're going to select the appropriate images that demonstrate your qualifications for this call to artists and then complete the application. So let me just show you some examples of where to find the information. First of all, phoenix.gov/arts. This is our main Office of Arts and Culture homepage. Again, I'm going to post a link that will look like this picture on our homepage later on today that will go directly to the information. If you want to navigate to it, you just find our public art tab, click on that. It will take you to the public art program page where you should see an opportunities tab. And then let me show you what that opportunities page looks like right now. So this is actually a live view of our website right now. Kara, can I get a thumbs up if you're seeing that? Cool, great. So here's where all the information is actually hosted on our opportunities page. You can download the call to artists here just by clicking on it. It's a PDF. This is probably where you found the link to join this meeting today. And then this apply tab takes you directly to the Cafe link to apply. There's also a contact for Romeo Rabusa, who I will talk about in just a minute. He is our procurement officer with the project, who will be handling any questions that you might have after this meeting is over. Oh, there's also a great little link on there for signing up for our listserv if you want to know about future opportunities. Okay, Ed, could you walk us through the selection criteria for this specific project?
Sure. As Katie mentioned, and I think the call suggests, the initial selection of artists, or recommendation of artists for this project, based on previous work. We're not expecting anybody to submit any ideas for this. One of the reasons for that is that, we've yet to actually have a meeting with the community and the artist. And so a lot of the questions that you're asking about what kind of art we are looking for, in reality, that's really determined through your interaction with the community and the project team. So the first piece is the demonstrated artistic quality of your previous work. And work samples can include, but are not limited to, murals and sculpture installations, all the kinds of work that you do that you think would suit this project and also help, quite honestly, panelists recommend you as one of the artists for this project. So the other piece, and that's 10 points, the other piece is the potential to create a design that will have a great impact on this public project. And the work sample should show the potential for you to the design to complete an integrated streetscape concept. And we really leave that to you to determine what is best for your own application. There are a lot of, on this point, I would say there are a lot of videos up online as part of our resource page that walks through the importance of visuals and also the importance of photography. And if you haven't already looked at those, they're on our website. We can post the link in the chat so that you can go to those videos. And I would recommend you look at the Public Art 101s if you haven't already applied for public art projects through the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. And that's 5 points there for that second piece. And then the third is what experience you might have in collaborative design work or community engagement. And I will tell you that we encourage our panels to interpret this fairly broadly. Collaborative work occurs in all kinds of settings, in all kinds of ways. And so as part of your artist statement, I think it would be helpful to just point out briefly what sort of collaborative work experience you've had with any of the projects you've worked on in the past. So am I leaving out anything there, Katie? But those are the 3 sets of standards that the panel will be using as criteria. It's 10 points for artistic quality, 5 points for the potential to work well in this team, and then another 5 points for collaborative experience.
No, I think that's great to cover it. If anyone on the call has questions about this, please type them in the chat box and we can go more in depth about each of these criteria in our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and go on to tips and resources because Ed mentioned them. We have a YouTube page and I popped the link to our YouTube page there in the chat box, and I'll just slide my screen over and let you guys see it. Ed mentioned the Public Art 101 digital classroom. The first lesson in there is all about how to apply for public art projects. And if you go to just our general video library, you'll find lots of other items that could be helpful as well, including a cafe demonstration. If you've never submitted through cafe before, it literally walks you through step by step how to do that. But the Public Art 101 series is great if you are looking to understand how the steps of this process will go from application to design to construction. We also have some digital file work if you're curious about how to use different types of digital file and design software. Lots of helpful things. Minimize this. So these are the 2 videos that I just mentioned, Public Art 101 and the cafe application demonstration. I also want to mention the International Sculpture Center portfolio reviews. A month ago, we did a series of workshops with the International Sculpture Center called ISC Connects. They have recordings of all of those portfolio reviews, and they have some really helpful tips for artists who are applying to public art projects about how to select photos for an I've got some frozen faces. Can everyone still hear me okay? Okay, great. Just making sure everything's working. All right, so that was a quick run through of everything. We're going to go into our Q&A session now. In this meeting, please ask any questions you would like. I'll have Barry go through the list in a minute. And after this session is over, I want to encourage you to ask any other questions you might have, but due to procurement rules, we need you to send them through Romeo Rabusa, who is the procurement officer on this project. Whenever he receives your questions, he sends them along to Barry and I so that we can provide accurate information to you. We also make any question that comes to us available in an FAQ document. So that all this information is available openly and freely to anyone who is interested. We will continue posting that FAQ document. We'll update it as questions come in, and we'll post it on that opportunities page where all the information on the RFQ is hosted. Okay, so Barry, could we go through some of the questions and hopefully be able to answer them for everyone?
Yes, sorry, I scrambled my screens just as you spoke to me. We have a lot of great questions. The first one came in early, and Katie, I think you answered it to a certain extent. Are you looking for bronze statue work or ceramic sculpture work alongside the specs? And by specs, they're referring to the tentative designs of the streetscape.
You know, sculpture can definitely be a part of this. We are looking for a holistic concept. So I would say if you are a bronze sculptor or a ceramic sculptor and you're interested in working on the project, I would consider showing us some things that would demonstrate that you do this sculpture, but can also think about holistic landscapes or demonstrate that some way in your narrative or your artist statement. Does that make sense, Ed? Am I answering that correctly?
It does, and quite honestly, as I mentioned before, some of the answers to these questions will be revealed once the artist begins working with the community and also the design team. There will be obvious opportunities and constraints as part of this whole project. You know, one of the big issues with any kind of placement of works alongside right-of-ways is whether there are any subterranean constraints that might limit foundations and all those kinds of things that would help your sculptures, if that's what you have, stand up. So I would hazard to say yes or no to any of this. It really depends on what's out there once you start work with the community and also the design team.
So show us your best work. I think that's your strongest way to apply to this project, to show us your best work.
And the next question is there any description or overview of the community available, including demographics, specific interests or concerns, sites of interest that the thoroughfare connects, etc.? But then there's a follow-up that says that John answered this to a certain extent. So I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, one thing I can add is John did a good job of sort of giving a broader overview of what is going on in the community, but I always encourage artists and anybody interested in applying for projects to learn as much as they can about the area, and you can do that through a wide range of sources, demographic studies, census data, all the rest of that is available and widely open to all. So do your research. That's always a good thing.
Are you wanting to keep with the hilltop and cactus theme? I live in the area and hiking is popular. there?
Again, we don't, in our office, we don't determine or prescribe themes. That's something that you'll work out in the interactions you have with the community and also with the design team.
And I like this next question. Is there a way to provide protected bike lanes to make a bike-friendly approach, or has the decision already been made for just paint?
John, could you help us out with that question?
We aren't at a point yet where we have ruled out protected bike lanes, so we are still in very preliminary work here. So protected bike lanes are still on the table as we speak.
Great, thank you so much.
And just to be clear about this, that's something that we in the arts world don't really get involved in. We leave that to our safety folks over at Streets and their consultants to determine best routes and working with community on that.
Will the landscape architecture team be selected separately, or could they be part of the artist team?
The former, I believe, and John, you can speak to this if you like, is once you get beyond the studies phase, you will likely have a contracted, a civil team that may include a landscape architect as well, unless I'm wrong.
No, based on our first public input that we had when we went out just as a designer, landscaping is obviously a very important component of this project. So we will make sure that the streets department will hire as part of the design team a landscape architect.
So in a nutshell, I can thank you for that, John. Generally, what our experience has been, if artists hook up with a team or a landscape architect and apply for a project, the first question a panel is going to have, including folks, the representative from the street transportation department on the panel, is, well, we already have a landscape architect. Why do we need a team with a landscape architect? So I would encourage all of you to apply as artists, and you would be coordinating and integrating all of your efforts with John's team, which will be a fairly complex one. So any other thoughts on that, John or Katie or Barry? Okay, keep it simple. I guess that's the advice I have.
And the next question, I think, Ed, you've answered, but maybe you can elaborate. Are you looking for a pop artist, contemporary artist, or art director, which would be graphic design based?
Well, I think the call specifies what we're looking for and how to apply, and I would encourage you to provide your best work. And I have answered that, I guess. We're not looking for any particular kind of artist other than one that can be successful in working with a complicated road project and a community that's very interested in seeing some real enhancements to that pedestrian area.
I would say any of those types of artists should apply for this project and show us your best work and could be considered as a candidate for the project as long as you can meet those 3 criteria that we went through. I wouldn't say any of those types of artists listed in that question are ineligible at all. I think they'd all be eligible.
Yep.
And the next question, are these interventions intended to be prototypes, for example, street furniture, etc.?
Could we get a little clarification on that question? Whoever asked it, could you unmute yourself and explain a little bit?
Just what I'm wondering is that, hi, this is Rami Kuniyuki, and I guess what I'm wondering is that when we actually think about these things, we should be thinking about these things that can be replicable, something that might be mass produced and might be, exist in other areas of 32nd Street, or are they sort of one-off things just specific to this area?
So Ed, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the design should be specific to this area. I do not think that limits you from selecting materials, if you come up with an overall streetscape concept and you find a bench that is mass produced that fits within your public art concept for the whole area, I think that is okay as a part of the concept. But I don't think that it is something that you would design and then we as the city would mass produce and use in other places. Does that, am I
Yeah.
clarifying that, Ed?
Yep, that's a good summary.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Ramey?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will renderings of projects in process be allowed for this call, given the long nature of municipal projects?
For the application, I they're certainly allowed. You can submit renderings. They're allowed. I don't recommend them because I don't, in my experience of listening to panelists reviewing renderings as images, it's very difficult for panelists to make the connection of what does this look like in real life. So yes, they are allowed as a part of the application, but I wouldn't recommend it as a part of the application. Is that okay for me to say, Ed? I hope.
Oh yeah, no, I would echo that. You know, we have had hundreds, not thousands of entries, and some include renderings or photoshopped models of some kind. And the first question that panels are going to ask is, well, was it ever built? And then if it wasn't built, why not? And so if I'm an artist applying for a project, I don't want to add any element of doubt to the panel's reviewing of my work. So that's the reason why it might be best to go with the work that you've already done. If you get to the interview stage, that is, as a finalist, then, and we request models of some kind for your ideas, then that would be the step where renderings might be appropriate. But including them as part of your submittal now generally hasn't been successful for artists over time. So we're just giving you our best down-to-earth advice here.
Yeah, I would also emphasize that this part of the application at this point is a request for qualifications. So just to everybody listening, we are not looking for you to design a concept for this project in this part of the application. We really need to see works that you have created to understand the way that you think. That's what our panelists are going to be looking for. How does this artist think about creating artwork, and how does it match up with this selection criteria?
And we have one more question at this point. Can you please review the budget, soft costs, construction costs, etc.?
So I will give you what the call to artist says, and you can go to the RFQ and download it and get more detail there. This first contract for design will be for $50,000. This will be for you to do all of the design work. Construction would be under a second contract. I expect that contract to be around the $500,000 range, but that will be dependent on the artist's design, the amount of work that they are fabricating themselves versus the amount of work that they have designed and we have passed on to maybe a general contractor or a landscape architect to install. The total cost to build the public art portion of the project, I expect to be around $500,000, but that doesn't mean that the artist will necessarily be in control of that whole $500,000 construction budget. It really depends on the type of artist, the type of work, and the process by which that work will be made and installed. Hopefully that gives you kind of a general overview of the way that this will go, but it's a little too difficult to determine at this point exactly what those costs will mean. The $50,000 design contract, though, will cover your work and meetings with the engineers, your work and community meetings, any travel that you may need to incur to come here to do those meetings, and any sort of engineering that might be required to complete final design documents that would then be integrated into the project. Ed, what am I missing in
No,
terms
that's
of
a good
budget?
summary. And the, final design in our world means buildable construction documents. So particularly if you have some significant structures. I can further cloud this issue, and cloud the answer by telling you that it largely depends on what the artist designs. For instance, and I'll spare me here if you would. If you design something that is a significant structure along the right of way, then obviously it's going to require some foundational work. It may be possible in the course of this contract to have the overall base building contractor that Streets is overseeing incorporate some of that work into what they do. They would reach then into our pocket, our budget, to be able to carry out that work. The only reason that that might be possible, and it might also not be possible, but the reason that it might be possible is that the city can gain efficiencies in construction by doing that once the ground is open and all the rest. So that's the unknown as part of this budgeting, but that fully integrated projects usually include that sort of discussion.
Are there any other questions or things that we might need to clarify for anyone? You can feel free to unmute yourself and just verbally ask them at this point if you'd like. Okay, hearing none, we hope that you all will consider applying for the project. Here is, again, the website where you can find all of the additional information. I will be posting a recording of this meeting here on this page later on today. If you have further questions, please contact Romeo Rabusa. His information is there on that page as well. And he will be able to direct your questions to us, and we will be happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Katie. And John, thank you for joining us. Barry, thanks for your assistance. And we really appreciate your taking the time to join us this morning.